The intersection of endurance sport, health, fitness and life. Challenging conventional ideas and empowering people with the science of self-propelled motion. This is the Endurance Experience Podcast, hosted by Tony Rich.
It would be as a traumatic ending as it was dramatic throughout. Just a few kilometres from shore, an exhausted Chloë McCardel hit a receding tide. The decision was made to head to land 2 kilometres short of her target. Her pain was obvious. The fact she was still able to swim, remarkable. She had nothing left, but under the rules, couldn't be helped until she cleared water.
Well done.
It was still a world record, 126 kilometres. At the start of the day, this ending looked unlikely. Sunrise in the Bahamas had never been such a welcome sight after a night spent being attacked by jellyfish. Chloë could still manage a wave, but her lips and tongue were badly swollen, making eating tough. Her pace slowed, but her support crew cheered as she passed the 100-kilometre mark.
100k! 100k! Yes! 100k!
Then a new challenge, hypothermia. This is her final push. She's battled jellyfish and the onset of hypothermia, but Chloë is equal parts courage and endurance. We later saw the cost of Chloë's determination on her face.
Nothing great is easy. And nothing could be more true, because it is only when we're living outside our comfort zone, when we're living fearlessly, that we can hope to achieve great things. Business values success so highly that to fail is seen to be weak, something to be ashamed of. These fears hold us back. They hold us back from achieving our potential. They hold us back before we've even started. They hold us back from saying, I'm going to step outside my comfort zone and go after this huge goal. And through the process of stretching, we go through enormous and intense growth. What you're doing is setting yourself up through these dark times. You're becoming stronger every time you go through a challenge. And as you become stronger, you become more empowered, you become more confident, and you go through intense learning experiences. Because every time you don't achieve something that you're trying to achieve, you realize something is not working. Something needs to change. It forces you to become more effective, more efficient. It forces you often to think more creatively because you need to adapt. You need to find answers because currently you're not getting to where you want to go. And there's just one thing I want to leave with you today. Do not let the fear of failure stand in your way of achieving greatness. Thank you.
She is Chloë McCardel, one of the greatest open water swimmers ever, male or female. Maybe even the greatest ever. She's done the world-famous English Channel swim, which is a 21-mile swim, 37 times, surpassing even the male record. She's done it 3 times in a week and also did a triple non-stop crossing. And as you've heard, she holds the world record for the longest unassisted swim, 77 miles long. Imagine that, swimming out in the deep blue sea for over 40 hours. Her accomplishments and awards are so numerous to even mention here. But just to name one, she was inducted into the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame as its youngest member. She's an international keynote motivational speaker, a swimming coach, and a passionate advocate for the empowerment of women. So we talk about her accomplishments, including the English Channel swims and the longest unassisted swim. And we talk about the logistics of pulling that off. We dive into the chase we endurance enthusiasts get consumed with to go after the next big endeavor, and all of the sacrifices and challenges that come along with that. And she talks about how she deals with that and what her plans are in this area. We talk about some of the issues she's passionate about, including her very own personal fight against domestic violence. And for all you swimmers and triathletes, Chloë puts on her coaching hat with me, and she gives her perspective on improving your swimming, open water swimming, and particularly dealing with open water swim fear and panic. And I should mention there's a story about her in the December issue of Marie Claire, Australia. So check that out. And she's got an online swimming seminar coming up later this month. So the link to that is in the show notes. Chloë embodies the spirit of everything I intended to convey with the Endurance Experience podcast. I'll have more to say in my podcast afterward. So now it's my great honor to present to you Chloë McCardel. I am on with Chloë McCardel. Thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
All right. Before we get started, how are you and your family doing and holding up with the global pandemic? I think given that you guys are in Australia, you guys are probably faring a lot better than we are in the States.
Yeah, so the Australian infection rate is quite low. That's because we have very high restrictions on movement and activities here, especially in Melbourne, where there was a second flare-up. So most of my family, all my family live in or close to Melbourne, and most of my friends are Melbourne-based. So they've had very heavy restrictions. I'm Sydney-based, so I luckily escaped that heaviness. So I was able to get out of the country, which was a huge relief because the Australian government actually put a ban on Australians leaving the country. So I had to apply for an exemption. So my family are healthy, they're well. I think like everyone, it's been hard having their movements heavily restricted, but we're doing really well, thank you.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I just wanted to ask about that. You guys are faring much better. I think being an island on the bottom of the planet helps. So that's great. So many people on the podcast, I think, know you. You're internationally known as a marathon swimmer, multiple records and world records. And so I want to talk about that. And when I want to get into some of the other things that you've got going on. You're a motivational speaker, you're a coach. And I want to talk about all of that. So first, let's talk about your origin story, if you can. I like origin stories with people who have done amazing things like you have. So take our listeners through your swimming origin story. How did you get into swimming? Did you start as a kid, as an adult? And how did you eventually get into marathon swimming?
Well, it's really funny that you should ask this because I'm actually that kid that didn't know how to swim. So in Australia, as a middle-class kid, it's just standard that you learn how to swim when you're young, like when you're 3, 4, 5, you get sent off for swim lessons. And I was the youngest of 4 children. My parents were both working full-time. They were busy, and I just kind of got forgotten about in that one aspect. And I got to the age of 11, and I realized that all my friends knew how to swim, and we were sent to swimming lessons by the school for the first time ever. And I saw them. They could swim a couple laps of a 25-meter pool. And I was just super embarrassed. And that very night I went home and I spoke to my mom and I said, Mom, all my friends know how to swim and I've got like no idea. Like I like being in the water, but I don't know how to swim any strokes. And she's like, oh yeah, we just forgot to put you in swim lessons. No problem. We'll enroll you in a couple of weeks. And she was true to her word. She put me straight into swim lessons at a local pool. And I just loved being in the water, and I loved the chance to have the opportunity just to swim 25 meters. So I know what it's like to have that feeling, maybe a bit of shame or a bit of feeling like you're not as good as other people, in the fact that you want to be able to perform a skill, whether it's a sport or something else in life, and you can't do it and everyone else around you could. So as a young person, that was a defining moment for me, because I just wanted to swim to the other end of the pool. That was my big goal when I was 11. And that just started from there. And that started my love affair of wanting to just go a little bit further and refine my strokes and make them a little bit better, move up squads and really just grow in my own swimming ability. I didn't necessarily want to be the fastest kid in the world. I just wanted it to keep progressing, and I love pushing myself. And I did get into competitive swimming, racing, specializing in a 100 and 200 meter butterfly, because I love swimming so much. I progressed very fast because I was so focused and I worked so hard and I listened really intently to what the coaches were saying. But I was not at that talent level where you need something really special to even be close to making Olympic teams. I wasn't even in the ballpark there. So then I gave it away, and when I started university, I was like, I really want to achieve something amazing with my life. And I was studying an arts degree, and I didn't think that was going to lead me to something, really purposeful or fulfilling in my life, at least not in the short term. And I remember that I loved swimming. I loved sport. I was doing a little bit of it as I finished school and started uni, and I got into triathlon, and I wanted to be an elite junior triathlete, but I was so behind the 8 ball in running and cycling. I was a fit teenager doing lots of sports, but I hadn't specialized in anything except swimming. So it took 2.5 years, and I thought I need to try something else. So I ran a marathon in 2006 when I was 21, and I did 3 hours 37, and I'm still so proud of that today, like 14 years later. And then I swam a marathon, so I trained up to do both. And the swimming marathon, I just fell in love with it, because you're out there, you're completely at the mercy of the elements. You can't control the waves, the current, the water temperature, the air temperature. The race director or the event or the pilots, if there's boats involved, they decide the start time. The race director, they've got control of certain elements. But as a swimmer, you really just need to let go and just immerse yourself in that environment and figure out what is the best way for you to get to your goal in that swim, whether it's just to finish, because a lot of marathon swimmers just want to complete a goal, which is wonderful. Or if you want to place in your age group, or if you want to place in the elite division, what do you need to do on that particular day to really get the most out of yourself? So I love that open water swimming. I could connect with the environment around me. I could really let go and be in that environment and push myself. There's so many opportunities to push hard, because the marathon swimming, the events go for a lot of hours. Yeah. So if you're someone that really likes to push the envelope, push yourself, then there's so many opportunities to really grow and challenge yourself in marathon swimming. So you can probably tell I've got a love affair with marathon swimming, and particularly the English Channel, but I'm sure we'll talk about that soon.
Well, that's amazing that I can see that it's a passion, and it's important that you're saying that you don't have to be thrown into water as a very, very young kid. A lot of swimmers think that because I didn't get thrown into the water at 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, that it's a lost cause. It's a death sentence. And we hear that from triathletes all the time. Oh, I never swam as a kid, or no one ever taught me as a kid, and therefore it's all lost cause. So it's great to hear you say that you can do amazing things in swimming, and learn later. I learned as an adult how to swim, right? So
That's fabulous. Good on you.
yeah. So for the listeners out there that want help swimming, you have two Guinness World Record holders saying that you can still be good swimmers. Although mine is, I bow to Chloe. I feel embarrassed even talking about it, considering all the records that she has. But yeah, so that's amazing. So you mentioned the English Channel. Let's talk about that. So for the listeners that may not know, describe this swim. What are the elements of this swim? And when did you decide that, okay, that's what I want to tackle?
So the English Channel swim is the mecca of open water swimming in the world. There is nothing that even comes close when it comes to the geographical or the historical significance of that patch of water between England and continental Europe. So it's had a place, I guess, in swimmers' imagination and even in geographical, geopolitical sort of circles for many centuries, over 1,000 years. So when the first man to finally swim the English Channel, because it was a big deal when the first person ever did it. So the first person was Captain Matthew Webb. When he did it, it just set the world alight, or the Western world alight, but from the massive achievement of swimming 34 kilometres in the cold, in the rough water, strong tides, shipping traffic. And back then they had no GPS and very, very basic boats, virtually no sports nutrition knowledge. And it was just an amazing achievement. And what that swim did was really propel channel swimming up into the stratosphere of open water swimming. And in fact, open water swimming was an Olympic sport before pool swimming. Mm-hmm. So we're finding an interesting swing where open water swimming is really becoming big again, and people think it's coming big for the first time, but actually it predates pool competitive swimming, wow, which is so interesting. Well, for me anyway. So I think that I knew about the English Channel because, at least in Australia, and I'm pretty sure in America and in England, we probably got a lot of people listening. It's a high profile open water swim. And I just thought if, I had this goal of being the best in the world at something, and because I had a sporting background and a passion for sport. And then I did well in my first marathon swim. I was the first woman and second person over the line, and my first marathon swim ever. I thought, wow, I think I can really excel in this. And so I knew that the English Channel was where the best marathon swimmers in history went to test themselves. And then I knew that I had to go there. So I felt this pull, this really just that I was being drawn to the English Channel. So I signed up to swim it in 2009, which was 2 years after I had done that marathon swim. So I was planning 2 years in advance to give myself time to prepare. And then I went over in that first year. So I guess the significance, the world significance of that swim, the challenge of it, and also, I guess, wanting to be one of the best swimmers in the world, if not in history, I needed to go there to prove myself and to show the world and to show me that I could play in that higher game they wanted to play at.
Wow. So that's the Boston Marathon of swimming. And
yeah, I guess so.
So what, 21 miles?
Yeah, it's 21 miles, 34 kilometers.
And you've since done it 37 times? How many times? 37.
Yeah, 37. I did it 6 times this year.
That is incredible. And so you've done it multiple times in a season, multiple times in a week.
I've done it multiple times in a row too. So on 3 occasions I did double non-stop crossings, which means you get into England because all swims start in England. You swim all the way to France, you get out the other end, and then you turn around and you swim all the way back to England. So it's non-stop. I've done that 3 times. And then 1 year I did a triple non-stop crossing. I was the 4th person in history to do that. So it was back in 2015. So it's literally get into England, swim to France, get out, swim back to England, get out, and then somehow manage, not well, but somehow managed to scrape my way back to France for the second time.
My goodness. Now, a couple of things about that. So with open water swimming and doing these channel swims, obviously you have the issue of marine life. do you ever get nervous about sharks, or is this something that you put it out of your mind? With sharks, I think it's, I don't know if it's worth seeing one or not seeing one. And so does that really get into your mind? And also with open water swimming, there's a lot of triathletes listening to this who just have that fear with open water swimming. I've seen great pool swimmers get in open water and have a panic attack.
Yeah,
It's
and that's
that feeling like there's no wall to grab onto.
Yes.
And then there's something about that triggers something that just panic. So that fear of marine life and the fear of open water swimming, does that come into your mind at all?
Not much. So first of all, my view is that sharks live in the ocean. So if I'm going to swim in the ocean, I'm going to swim where they live. And their brains are very primitive. So, if they accidentally, nibble on a human, it's not because they're trying to hunt us, because they're very efficient hunters. If they were hunting humans, thousands of us would die each year, if not tens of thousands. So, I go in there with a philosophy that I'm visiting their home, and if something does happen ever for me, then it would be an accident. So I bear no ill will to any shark out there. In terms of fearing sharks for the potential of myself being injured or killed, I think that I try and take like a rational point of view as much as possible. I'm very cognizant of where I swim, so I will always speak to local people, all the local authorities or local business owners, and suss out the particular area before I swim in a new area I've never swum before, because I don't think it's smart to just go in, walk in the water in the ocean or bay or wherever sharks may be, and then just assume that you're going to be safe because humans are at the top of the food chain, because they are on land, but in the water things can be different. So I like to make calculated risks. For example, I have done the Rottnest Channel Swim in Australia, which is off Perth, which is in Western Australia, all the way to a little island called Rottnest. And people have died from shark attacks there. But when I swim there, I take it as a calculated risk. I take a boat, I take kayakers. And if you have a lot of buzz and activity around a swimmer, it scares off sharks because they want an easy dinner, but they don't want to work hard. And they actually can be quite timid. So I take calculated risks. There are places where I would never swim. I mean, one should never swim by themselves as a general rule in open water swimming. But there's also some places where I'll be like, well, the risk is too high. For example, there's saltwater crocodiles in a lot of the top end of Australia. So, I don't just think that because I can swim well, I have the right, or I should be swimming anywhere I like. But then again, if triathlons are being run, then the race organisers have done their own risk assessments beforehand. So if I'm entering a triathlon race, I trust that those organisers have looked at the risks, have minimised or mitigated any risks there. And I think I would encourage triathletes to trust in their coaches. If their coaches are running open water swims, then I believe that they would be doing it in a place where they think it's safe, very low, if any, chance of marine life with teeth. And the same with race organisers. But it is still understandable that if you could be afraid of those sharks. And for those people, my advice would be, if haven't already, go find a local coach, someone that you can build or you feel a great trust and rapport with, and then just make little, small, gentle steps, initial strokes, small swims, join open water groups, and gradually build up your confidence before you do your first open water swim. Because open water swims, it's a lot of bunch-on activity where swimmers can be swimming over the top of each other, which is also overwhelming. So find a coach and just gradually get more and more familiar, more comfortable and more confident swimming in the open water, and then add in more variables, as in then start swimming really close to someone in the open water in training, so that you get used to having people swimming on top of you, and then swim a bit further from shore, and then swim in rougher conditions. And if you can acclimatize to those variables in a more safe and controlled coaching environment, then you'll build up your confidence and your ability to handle that when you go into a race. So I think really, really investing time in the preparation, the training before you do your first marathon, or if there's an off season, in your off season, really take that as a focus to work on your open water so that when the race season comes around again, that you're more confident to go out there and give it your best shot.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. I think that experience allows you to sort of mitigate that fear and that panic attack that you get when you start to get in open water a lot. I think with the sharks, I don't know. I get with ocean sharks. I think like dark meat, so I stay out of the ocean.
They do get surfers wearing wetsuits disproportionately. But they have like limbs hanging just like that off a surfboard, and I think a limb with a wetsuit on that's mostly black would kind of look like a seal.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I'll stay. I mean, might mistake me for a seal, so I'll stay out of the ocean. That's great. So now you did the channel swims, and you also hold the world record for the longest unassisted open water swim, 128 kilometers. So that works out to how many miles for us in the States? That's 77 miles, something like that. Yeah,
so the original course was supposed to be 128 kilometers, but at the end of the swim, they cut it a little bit short to get me to shore as soon as possible because I was exhausted by the end of it. So it was ratified at 124.4. But if you've read online 128, that's because before the swim, that was our planned goal and what we were talking to the media about. So that number's also out there in the world.
Got it, yeah. So that's 124. So that's 77 miles, right?
Yes.
So what are the logistics for pulling that off? You have a whole team with you, and that's first of all, let's just look at that. That's 77 miles. So I looked up the World Open Water Swimming Association. They ranked that number 18 in the top 100 marathon swims ever. That is incredible. So just for the listeners, they ranked that higher than even Diana Nyad swim. They ranked Diana Nyad 24. So that is number 18 they ranked out of all the marathon swims ever. That's incredible.
Just on that point, in marathon swimming, because what we do is out in the oceans or the bays, and it's away from the public, it's away from often the media's scrutiny, there's some contention around marathon swims sometimes and their validity. For example, the Channel Swimming Association, which is one of the two groups that can ratify English channel swims, they were actually formed in 1928 because people were claiming to swim the English Channel and some of them were fraudulent. Mm-hmm. So you need to, as an athlete, if you are ever looking at these things, or a podcaster, just keep in mind with marathon swimming, like marathon running and I guess all businesses in life, there's going to be a tiny percentage of fraudulent activity. Mm-hmm. And I'm guaranteeing you that someone on that list is a fraud. And I'm not going to say who their name is.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's an interesting list.
Wow. But number 18, that is incredible. So logistically, how is that? How did you pull that? So you have a team with you that works with you. Just explain to our listeners how you pulled that off logistically.
It was a big challenge. So we had moving elements. So when I was with my ex-husband, this is years ago now, back in 2014, we had so many elements to manage. We were running things on a shoestring budget. I still run all my marathon swims on tiny, tiny budgets. So I was managing most of the logistics, which was challenging because I was also the marathon swimmer myself. But leading into that swim, I recruited a team of shark protection people to keep sharks at bay. So we had specific strategies to deter sharks from being in the vicinity of where I was swimming. So I had a whole team doing that. We had a team of kayakers on rotation, so that I could always have 2 kayaks next to me because they were part of the strategy of keeping sharks away. Then we had 2 boats, so we needed drivers to drive those boats. And then we needed observers. So we needed 2 observers so they could rotate so that it was an official ratified swim. And then, feeders for me. Then there was 2 people dedicated to just feeding me and then helping just run the logistics of things. So I had to recruit all those people. I had to organize their movements. Most of them were based in America. I live in Australia. So there was, travel issues, more logistics, timing, schedules, and then also trying to find the right people, especially because a lot of the roles were volunteer. So I had to really work with other people's schedules and what they could offer because I was just so grateful to have their support. So logistically, it was a big, big event. But we pulled it off. It was, it was just, it was incredible that everything worked so well. We had a few challenges along the way, but the group dynamic was that people had different strengths that they could offer at different times. And then when we did have challenges along the way, they worked things out, and then they didn't need to get me involved in the challenges. They just sorted that out and really supported me on those boats so that I could focus on my job of literally just putting one arm in front of another until I hit land.
Wow. Man, so many questions that it would take another podcast to get through all of them. But
would.
You never felt sleepy. So that took what, over 40 hours?
Yeah, 41 and a half hours.
Never got sleepy or anything?
No, I never got sleepy. So I'm constantly taking caffeine during these swims.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm constantly moving. Now, I'm not sure from a physiological point of view, maybe you've got some ideas about how constant exercise delays the feeling of needing to sleep. Yeah. There's something behind that. But what I did get was not just fatigue from exercising nonstop, and exhaustion from I was getting burned, like sunburn from the sun for 2 days nonstop. So I was getting stung by jellyfish. That was I was being poisoned as well as I was doing this. So on top of those things, I had the element of, because I couldn't sleep and my body couldn't recover and have any downtime, there was no off switch. Like I was never allowed to get on the boat. I was never allowed to hang on to a kayak and rest. So not having the ability to let my body sleep meant that my fatigue increased, my exhaustion increased. And so instead of sleeping, my body just went a bit crazy. My mind lost the plot sometimes. For example, I started seeing letters come up, so imprint into the sand in front of me, just random chaotic letters. And when I first started my hallucinations in long distance swimming, which was in my first big marathon swim in the English Channel, which was 2009, that used to freak me out. To think that my mind was doing something that I couldn't understand, that I thought was real, was a scary thing. But by 2014, I was so used to it and I was comfortable with it. I said to myself, I'm not, this is happening. I don't want it to happen, but you know what? It's going to happen anyway. Let's have some fun. So I tried to actually make words in the sand through my hallucinations. Wow. I tried to just have a bit of fun with it and tried to start creating words, but I couldn't get to the point where I'm able to control my hallucinations.
Now, what about your kick? Were you doing a regular, 2-beat kick, 4-beat kick, or were you not kicking much to conserve energy? What was your kick like through this whole thing?
I'll send you some footage, some broadcast footage that went to TV. There's a link later, so just in case viewers want to see parts of this swim unfold. And you'll see that I maintained a 6-beat kick the whole entire swim.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for those that watch my English Channel swims, even my multiple crossings, you'll see I just keep kicking the whole way. It's automatic for me now. I don't think to do a 6-beat kick. I only have one type of kick. Either kick or not kick.
Yeah, to put that into perspective for people listening, pool swimmers will do that for, maybe 100 meters, 200 meters, something like that. So to maintain that for that long, That's incredible. That's incredible. Wow.
It's actually disadvantage for me because your legs have your biggest muscles in your body. Now, if I'm continuing to kick, then I'm burning heaps of oxygen.
Yeah.
But your legs actually aren't a main driver for moving forward. So I'm sending a lot of oxygen to my legs, and I'm not even moving forward really for that effort. So, it would have been better for me in my development as a marathon swimmer that I'd had a coach who said, look, if you're going to get into this marathon swimming, we need to have a look about adjusting your kick. But I never had that advice. Well, I did, but it was very late in my marathon swimming career, only about 3-4 years ago. And I haven't managed to adjust my stroke yet to go down to a 2-beat kick, which would be a little bit more better, because in marathon swimming, all the kick you need is just to keep your your hips up to the surface. So that helps keep your legs up to the surface to maintain a good body position so that you're reducing any frontal resistance and drag.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, you're not really getting much assistance. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to race a marathon and you want to get the fastest time that you can do, or put yourself in the best position to place well, and think of it as a competitive strategy, then yeah, kicking is great. But you would only do a 6-beat kick at the back end of the swim, not the whole way through, like the Olympic marathon swimmers do in the 10K.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, it's not actually a great thing. I don't encourage others to do it because it's just not an efficient use of oxygen.
Yeah. And the same thing, triathlon, Ironman swimmers that we tell, 2-beat kick. And, sometimes you see swimmers not kicking at all. So that is, that's incredible. There's so much more that I could ask you about that, but that is an incredible feat. And that landed you a world record. That's unbelievable. Now, do you feel you've accomplished everything you can in marathon swimming, or do you feel a constant gravitational pull towards another bigger endeavor?
Yeah, so interesting you say that. It's a trap, I think, that endurance athletes or even elite athletes can get into, where they have this goal and it's a huge goal, and then they get to that goal and they're just constantly setting goals in the future. And I think that you've got to be careful as an athlete, or even just high performing people in general. You've got to be careful, because if you fall into that trap where you've constantly always got bigger goals, then the only way for you to finish this whatever endeavor you're taking is for you either to die, become so injured that you can no longer perform, or overwork yourself that you get to the point of exhaustion, or mentally burn out, or you burn out all the important relationships in work and on your personal life. So I did have some really good advice a few years ago, where one of my mentors said to me, you need to control your end game. You can't just constantly keep pushing yourself and putting yourself out there, because something will decide when you finish this marathon swimming career, unless you're the one in control of when it finishes. So plan for that, be in control of that, and finish on your terms. And I'd never thought about that before, because I was just so driven, so ambitious, and I would just set goal after goal after goal and always raising that bar. And it took a while. It took like 6 months for that advice to set in. So right now I'd like to be the greatest English Channel swimmer of all time and have the most Channel crossings ever. So I'm 7 crossings away from that. That's my next major goal. And after that, I think my goals will just be more for fun, if I can use that word, because that'll still be challenging, but I'm not sure if I'll be going after world records after that. So even just fitting 7 swims in next year in the English Channel, because there's only about a 3.5 month window when you can do them. It's not like I've got the whole year to do it. That's going to be a huge challenge. And then after that, I think I'll take the brakes off. Although if someone challenges my world record for the longest non-stop swim, I might feel the urge to come out of retirement if I'm retired and defend that, because that's my special thing. I really like that. So I'm not going to say never, but I'm definitely going to think about winding down in the next couple of years.
Yeah, well, you heard it here on the Endurance Experience. When you become the greatest English Channel swimmer of all time, I'll say, oh, I remember when I had her on the podcast We'll put this little time capsule out there. Oh, that's great. Wow. Okay. And so, I mean, I guess you also, you have a life, right? You have a life, family, things that you want to do with your life, settle down, all of that stuff too, because you need it when you're right. When you have all of these big accomplishments, you need to put other things on hold. Yeah.
That's what I've been doing since I was 21, is putting my ambitions and my athleticism first, and then everything else really has come second. And, you know, that's been hard. At some point, you know, you need to make sacrifices to achieve your goals, but then where's that line? And I think the line can be grey for a lot of people, and it's been grey for me too in the past. Whereas when have you gone too far? You need to make sacrifices, but at what point are you paying too much for your dreams and your achievements? Yeah,
and endurance athletes have a big problem with this, constantly chasing the next big thing. Ironman, marathons, ultra marathons, and then you can do 100 miles, 200 miles, and then at some point you need a huge commitment from everybody in your life, and you put a lot of things on hold. So but we want to see you start living your life too there. Okay. So given all of these accomplishments, do you feel a responsibility to motivate and inspire others, especially women and girls? And if you do, how do you choose to do that?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question, because I think my purpose in life is not actually to swim. Swimming for me is just a vehicle that can get me to where I want to go. And originally I wanted to be the best in the world at something, and that really drove me. But then when I became the best in the world at non-stop distance swimming, I was like, wow, is this it? Like, I thought it would be amazing when I kind of got to the top. And I realized that there's so much more to life than collecting records or even being the best at something. And about 6-7 years ago, I turned my attention to coaching people to swim the English Channel. And that actually made my experience of being a marathon swimmer more fulfilling, because it wasn't just about me anymore. I could contribute and I could assist people to achieve their dreams, and they were so grateful to have me a part of their journey as well. So we would go on these, and we still do, I still coach, we go on these incredible journeys where, you know, some swimmers are really confident when they sign up to swim the channel in either a relay or a solo, because I've coached both types. Some aren't so confident, but the ones especially that aren't so confident, they come through the program, they get their success on the other side, and you just see that the emotion that they come out with when they finish their swims, and the sense of fulfillment and boost of confidence and the sense of empowerment, and then they go back in their personal and professional lives and they take that with them. They transfer that new sense of growth and belief in themselves into their personal lives. And for me to be witness to that and to play a part in that is just an incredible thing. So being a coach of swimmers has actually made my marathon swimming journey more fulfilling and more enjoyable. And just because I spend so much time in England, like I spend 2 to 2.5 months usually in England every single year, but I don't live in England. So I'm away from my family, I'm away from my friends, my normal routine, my dogs, which are my fur babies, and then having them, they come in and out as they need to for their swims, having them there in town with me in Dover where Channel Swim starts. It's just made my swimming journey just so much more amazing, and making the year in, year out commitment to being in the English Channel much more fulfilling, because we go on these amazing journeys together. So I love impacting swimmers. And then onto a bigger platform, I've really got into advocacy the last 6 to 12 months, where I've decided that I want to use the media profile I have, the profile within the swimming community, to say, look, I want to shine a light on these issues that are really important to me. And domestic violence is really important to me, and supporting women who are going through that or who have been through that, or who are dealing with issues related to that. So I went through that myself, and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder from domestic violence. And I really struggled for a while with those symptoms and with the way that women sometimes portrayed as, for example, being the cause of the domestic violence, so like victim blaming.
Right.
And so now that's something that I talk about, when I get the opportunities, and I really love that podcasts like, you are now are giving me more of a longer opportunity to talk about these topics, because when I make news headlines, which is great because I'm reaching, millions of people instantly, it's great, but I don't get the chance to go into a little bit more detail and share a bit more intimately or vulnerably how swimming, for example, has been amazing for me in my journey for managing my post-traumatic stress and more intimate details. And I think that people are relating to me more and more in the last 6 to 12 months, because they can see that I'm not just some superhuman swimmer. I'm just a normal average person, and I go through stuff in life. We all go through stuff.
Right.
And now that they know a bit of the stuff that I've been through and how hard that's been, and how swimming's been like a really amazing antidote for me, they're more inspired to get out there and swim, or they're more inspired to talk about what they've experienced because they see me out there talking about it. And that's really important to me. And yeah, so I want to make an impact, but not just on women, but also on men as well, because we should all be part of this conversation. And obviously men can be a victim of domestic violence as well, not just women. So, in the both aspects of someone who is experienced in domestic violence, or in the community that should be supporting people who are experiencing or have experienced domestic violence, I really like to think that that's a conversation that men and women can have, and even teenagers, should be involved in that conversation to hopefully reduce and at some point eliminate domestic violence in our lives.
Thank you for talking about that. Those are some really important issues, and I think you'd be a great motivational speaker and an influence to everyone, but especially women and girls. And domestic violence is something that, especially someone like you who can speak from experience and can help people through some of those difficult times with that. And so you can have a huge impact, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do. I'm waiting for the book, the documentary, the podcast, the movie, all of it needs to come out. You are definitely an inspiration with all the things that you've done. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I think you've been very generous with your time. Let's finish up with one, final question. You said that you're getting deeper into swim coaching and coaching others for open water swimming and marathon swimming. We got to get a question in on your philosophy on coaching for all the swimmers that are listening who want to get better at swimming in general or swimming in open water. It can be, whatever you want, whether it's swim mechanics or any other advice that you have. What is some advice that you can give? And if you were to coach someone, what would they expect after being coached by you?
Well, thanks for the opportunity to chat a little bit deeper about my coaching. I really want my swimmers to succeed. I'm a very driven person. I want a high level of success for my own swims, but also for my swimmers. So I run a program where I set a high standard, and I say to my swimmers that, it's not an easy program to swim on. If you want to have an easy swim coach, go to another swim coach, because what I'm going to train you up for is the worst day you're going to get on the English Channel. Because if I can train you for the worst day, if that day happens, it may not, but if it does, you've got the confidence and the ability to swim through that. And then if you end up getting better conditions than the worst case scenario, you're just going to have so much fun, because you're going to feel so strong, so resilient, and so comfortable just swimming through whatever your day is. So I do run a tough program, and I think that's for this particular event of channel swimming and marathon swimming, which I specialize in, I think that's worked really well because I have a very high success rate. So that's one thing. Another thing I'd encourage, especially triathletes as well as marathon swimmers, to get into is interval training. If you're not already, it is gold. I've seen so many marathon swimmers just do long swims. They think that, well, the English Channel is a long way, 34 kilometers. Therefore, I should do long swims constantly. So they'll do lots and lots of 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hour swims and not much interval training. And they'll just treat interval training as something that they hate. They don't like the pool. It's chlorinated. They prefer open water. Open water is fun. So open water is like their comfort zone, what they love doing. And then they neglect how important it is to get that interval training in. For those of you who are not really familiar with that, but if you're following Tony, I'm sure you are. So what you're looking at is some high intensity reps with short rest. The rest is depending on what exactly your goals are for that interval set, and lots of repetitions. So elevating that heart rate and having only a short rest is like the literally fastest way to get stronger, fitter, and faster. So it's the most time efficient thing you could do to be a faster triathlete and to be a faster even marathon swimmer. And for people that think, I don't need to be fast, I'm swimming the English Channel or I'm swimming a marathon. When I say fast, what I mean is to just increase your pace. And you're going to want to have a good pace, because when you're tired and when you're fatigued, which is probably the whole second half of your marathon swim, or if it's an ultra marathon swim, it probably is, you're going to want to have some pace so that when you're tired, you can maintain a good pace. So yeah, interval training, train for worst case scenario. And if you want to get some more tips, I'm running some seminars on November 25th and 26th of this month. So hopefully the podcast will come out before then.
Yep.
If not, we can organize something so you can watch a catch-up recording. And what I'm going to do is really break down the science of interval training, why it's so important, and how open water swimmers can incorporate it if they want to design their own programs. Because some people don't have coaches. They want to give things a try themselves. And even if people do have squad coaches or do have an online coach, what you can do is just pick and choose little bits from what I tell people about in the seminar, and then you can just try them out and just see if you enjoy them or see if they add value to your own program. So I encourage you to come along. I have a free seminar, costs nothing but your time, and just see if you can learn something that you can add value to. And if you are looking for a coach for your open water swimming, then you can see if you like my style and you like what I have to offer as well.
Awesome. Okay. I am going to put all the links to Chloe's programs for seminars into the show notes. So go right there right now, and go click on those links to get all of those seminars and details. So we want to get that out to you. So if people want to reach you on your social media platforms, where can they find you at?
So I love interacting with people that love following my journey. So come join me. We're having a conversation and going on a journey together, especially as I'm building up to the world record for most channel swims next year. On Instagram, it's my name, so the @ Chloë McCardel. And for Facebook, it's Chloë McCardel -marathon swimmer. I think Tony will pop those links in the show notes as well, so you'll just be able to click away and come join.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much for being so generous with your time. And I can't wait to see you become the greatest English Channel swimmer of all time. Chloë McCardel, thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Hope to see you all soon.
Thanks again to Chloë McCardel, and make sure you follow her on all of her platforms so that you can keep up on everything that she has got going on, including the 7 channel crossings that she needs to become the greatest of all time channel swimmers. And find all of the links in the show notes to all of her details. Whenever I do a podcast with someone, I do research and read up on them. If they have a book, I'll read it or reread it. I'll thoroughly research their online bios and their entire online presence to develop all of the content and prepare for the podcast. In this process of doing that with Chloe, I was absolutely moved. Definitely shed a tear a couple times for a myriad of different reasons. Take a look in the show notes at the video of her reaching land for the unassisted 77-mile swim. She collapsed on the shore, exhausted, with a swollen face and a swollen tongue from being stung by jellyfish. And the words she's able to muster were, thanks and appreciation for her team. It's absolutely moving. But there was also so much about her and the things that she talked about in the podcast that I could resonate with in my own life. And probably many of you endurance enthusiasts listening can too. I know all about that seemingly irresistible pull to do greater and greater endurance events. And those of us that have tried to attempt things like world records and Guinness World Records, and then having to fail. And then when you fail, it eats at you and eats at you and eats at you until you do it again and continue to try to surpass all of your goals. And to have to make sacrifices to do this stuff and ask for patience from everyone who may be in your life, who you have to put on hold while you train for hours through the week and the weekends, and all the events that you have to bow out of because you have to train. I've been in that place where some people have said, hey, I'm not willing to make that sacrifice for or with you. And you have to look back at them and say, I understand, but sorry, I have to go forward. We all know, all of the endurance enthusiasts know about this all too well. So I completely understand. And doing the research on her set me back thinking and reminiscing and feeling all of it for sure. And I sort of felt a little bit of a spirit with her. And I want all of you guys to join me in following her as she completes the 7 English Channel crossings and become the undisputed greatest English Channel swimmer of all time. It will give us all great joy to see her be able to spend more time living life and realizing what she called in the podcast is her greatest purpose in life as a motivator, a coach, and someone who inspires and empowers others to do great things, and especially rise up against domestic violence. I feel like I've seen that side of it now. I might have, 1 or 2 things I'd like to do, but for the most part, I have experienced exactly what she's describing for herself in the future, where you just you're doing more recreational events, and I do them now out of pure enjoyment without the stress of training hard or having that seemingly fanatical desire to prove to the world how fast you are. I don't do any of that anymore. And it's a great feeling. And then I can have time to live life, which includes running a training and coaching platform, building a community, doing long-form conversations with amazing people like Chloë McCardel. I'll end this afterward with a quote, sort of a soliloquy that I think speaks to the spirit of Chloe's endeavors and what I'd like to convey to podcast listeners generally. It's probably my favorite. I can recite the entire thing from memory, and it's called Dare Mighty Things, which is from a speech by the former American President Theodore Roosevelt. In the battle of life, it is not the critic who counts, nor the one who points out how the strong person stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the one who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotion, who spends oneself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he or she fails, at least fails while daring greatly. Far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor, timid spirits who neither enjoy nor suffer much, because they live within the gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. This is the Endurance Experience podcast. Thank you for listening.
Follow Event Horizon Endurance Sport on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter for training programs and services. To become a member of our Endurance Institute or for a complete archive of podcasts, log on to our website, eventhorizon.tv.